Hi, welcome to another edition of What's This Show For? FOR, Friends of Ron. I'm your host, Ron Levitsky. There's probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of nonprofits throughout the world, all doing a good job. Well, what would distinguish one nonprofit from another? How about a nonprofit that's existence is to help other nonprofits? That's kind of exceptional, and we have two exceptional people who are part of that organization today. I'd like to welcome my guests, Emily Petway and Jerry Mahowski, who are representing giveNkind, a relatively new nonprofit. So welcome to both of you. I'm delighted that you're here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and before we get to introductions, people are maybe scratching their heads and saying, well, what does that mean? What is giveNkind? Emily, you're the founder. If you could just give us kind of a succinct definition or explanation of what giveNkind is.
Absolutely. giveNkind, actually, its name represents what we're for. In-kind goods are the material goods that nonprofits use to carry out their programs and serve their clients. And that's what giveNkind's mission is to collect new and gently used goods that nonprofits, our partners, could use to carry out their missions in the community.
So you're sort of a go-between between organizations or people who have lots of stuff that could be useful, and nonprofits who could really use that.
Exactly. We like to think of ourselves as the nonprofit for nonprofits.
Right.
Like you mentioned, there's actually 1.5 million nonprofits in our country.
Just in our country.
Just in our country alone. And we feel that we can serve as a resource to help to lessen the burden of those nonprofit administrators who spend so much of their time trying to either raise funds or find the goods they need. We feel that we can serve such a wider nonprofit community by doing that legwork, connecting people who have items to give with the people who can use them best.
Okay, wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, let's talk a little bit about an aspect of nonprofits that I find interesting from the human aspect, and that is, the concept of volunteerism. And I've had other nonprofits on, and I always like asking, what made you go into this? So let's start with you, Emily, as the founder of giveNkind. Tell us a little bit about your background and maybe a little bit about how you got interested in volunteerism and nonprofits.
Well, to make a long story short, I remember a very imprinted upon me, and when I was in kindergarten, I was at a party where I had a mentor, like a high school kid who'd come down to work with the kindergartners. I had spilled my juice, and the older high school student cleaned it up, and it was something that wasn't asked of them. They were there giving their time, and showed they weren't upset at all. And I just thought it was amazing that someone would help for no reason, that it was something that I had done that I needed help with, and he stepped in and swooped in. And for some reason, that stayed with me for a long time. And my first volunteer experience was when I was in 5th grade. I was a reading buddy to younger students, and that sort of continued onward. I created a community garden when I was in high school. I started a farmer's market in the Gurnee area when I was in college. These were things that just continued with me as I moved all throughout my life, and it just seemed a progression as I watched other nonprofits, as I mentioned, struggle to find the items they need to carry out their mission. This had over time developed into something as I saw a need that could be filled.
Oh, that's very inspiring. So you're a local girl?
I am. I'm from Gurnee.
Okay, so you're from Lake County.
Yes, I'm a Lake County girl.
That's wonderful. Proud of you. That's great.
Thank you.
And Jerry, how about you?
Well, I've been drawn to volunteerism, I guess, since kind of adulthood. So I got involved, I would say, on the periphery of things, maybe doing something as a volunteer day or getting involved with something very local. Later in my life, last few years, I've gotten more involved, especially in cancer type of charities. I've had some experience of losing people to cancer, and so I got more involved with that. And it occurred to me that I had more to offer, I think, to a charity. And fortunately for me, giveNkind was looking for a board member, and I thought that'd be a great way to get involved. My business background seems to be helpful to them, and it's been a great experience for me.
So people might be interested, what kind of business background do you have?
I work as an account executive for a company that does training and development of project managers primarily. And I've actually been in the education training business, if you will, for about 30 years or so.
Yeah, and I would imagine that people who've spent their career in business, it's a very competitive arena. They might find it kind of heartwarming and more human in a way, I suppose, to get involved in some nonprofits.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think that what I discovered at least was that a lot of the charities, philanthropic organizations, they're run by people who have a lot of good social service type backgrounds, but there's still a need for business, if you will. There's still a need for someone to look at fundraising and the basic running of the organization itself, and that's the kind of thing that comes almost naturally to a business person.
And it's great. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And that's an important aspect of nonprofits that I'm glad you're here to share that information. Okay, Emily. So let's talk about how you got the idea and how you started giveNkind. And when we say giveNkind, it's GiveNkind.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, thank you for distinguishing that. Yes, you and I share a background with education. So I was a public school teacher for 15 years, and upon graduating college, I moved to Atlanta and was teaching high school band, and outside of Atlanta. And I had so many students that we spent a lot of time with, because doing after-school rehearsals, I got to know them, and knowing that I had a student who was working to pay their electric bill. Putting lots of effort into contributing to their family, I knew that they weren't able to afford to go to prom. And that was a rite of passage. It seemed like something small, but those dresses can cost hundreds of dollars, and that was just something that I knew they weren't be able to afford. And I said, are you going to be able to go? And they said no. And I just thought that was just such an injustice. Small, but a rite of passage that I wanted to afford the students. So learned about an organization called Becca's Closet, and that is a nationwide dress bank organization with chapters all across the country and really over the world now. And I started a chapter at our school, starting with a box of 100 gowns. And
now, where'd you get the gowns?
The first shipment of 100 came from the parent organization, Becca's Closet. But with a range of sizes and different tastes, and lots of students at the school, that need grew and grew. So from that 100 boxes, over the course of 6-7 years, it grew to be 3,000 gowns in a freestanding store of 1,200 square feet that was donated to the organization. And the stipulation was we had to keep up the yard. So there was a need for a lawnmower. So put the call out, we need a lawnmower. And through a couple different channels, we found on FreeCycle that there was a lawnmower, but it had already been taken, first come, first serve, by someone who needed it for their lake house. Mm-hmm. So what was a convenience for one person was really a necessity in order for us to keep our doors open. And so much of our human capital was being spent trying to find this lawnmower, where we could have been channeling that into something else. So that's where I thought there really needs to be somewhere that organizations can post their wish list needs so people know what's needed. I think it would be surprising. People probably wouldn't think that a dress bank would need a lawnmower, but somewhere where all of the needs could be posted, and somewhere where nonprofits could have the first dibs on great items that could help them extend their reach.
When I talked to some friends about the show I was going to be doing with you, and I explained your organization, they said, well, what a great idea. I mean, it's like, whoa, why didn't somebody think of that before? It's a terrific idea. Jerry, what attracted you? And again, as Emily said, there are literally over 1 million organizations you could have volunteered for. What attracted you to giveNkind?
Well, you just said it. It's such a great idea. It's one of those things you look at and you say, boom, why didn't I come and think of that myself? It also, I thought, gave me an opportunity to kind of do a double impact. So I can still work with other charities I've been involved with, but in fact enhance what they do by working with giveNkind. So that was very attractive to me, and also that we're such in a formative stage. There's so many things to be done. You can really kind of spread your wings out and try new things, and help develop policies, programs, that sort of thing. So it's real exciting.
So have you made like connections between other organizations you've worked with?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yeah, very much so. In fact, last week I was at one. And it's funny, that story that Emily just said, because I was talking to the director, and she said, boy, we just downsized about 6 months ago, and I had, beds and beddings and all that stuff. That's a common story we hear. Common story is they go, wow, we would have loved to give them that stuff to a worthwhile charity as opposed to put it on Craigslist for $20.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. That's great. So let's then talk a little bit about how you actually created giveNkind, the nuts and bolts sort of, and its early history, and then we'll go to Jerry. He can talk a little about how it's funded and also how it's governed. So how did you actually start it?
Well, kind of piggyback onto your point and Jerry's about how we got started, we really envisioned this to be where nonprofits and donors would connect online. So it began as a web project. We wanted somewhere where 24/7 all of the needs could be seen and all the needs could be claimed or filled. And so we started out by creating a website. So this is from scratch, all volunteer built, a really hardy database that was responsive and relational database stuff. So we started out by finding volunteers who have some pretty deep development background who built out the scope of the project. And then we moved to taking that project to the Chicago Hackathon, which is a group of developers. They get together and over 24 hours you stay up all night and see how much you can accomplish on a project. And actually our project won the Chicago Hackathon.
Wow.
It was at Adler Planetarium with our very first prototype. Then we took that and with the help of Illinois Business Consulting, got some more of the business background and to create a tight business model and moved that into an application for JP Morgan Chase Technology for Social Good. And that's where they take their developers, because even though they're a bank, they have tons of developers working on their proprietary security software and whatnot. But they took that on as a project and developed it into what we consider to be really our first version of the site. And our volunteer developers meet weekly to continue to enhance that site. So that's how we began, was really web-based.
Okay, so then but you do have, I don't know if I should call it big box, but you do
Sure.
have something physical.
And that's really a new development. We realized that although could be a convenience to connect directly on the web, and we still have that as an option for our site, but we're finding that when people were able to come visit us, like you came to visit us, or were able to donate their items in person, it was less of a one item to one place and more of I have lots of items I'd like to drop off, but they don't fit the one place I'm dropping it to. So that's when we decided to open our doors in the last week of November of 2018, and that's when we started intaking items and have really seen our model shift from just connections to full hands-on volunteer sorting.
We'll talk a little bit more about it, but it sounds like it's also a very good marketing scheme because it's hard to take pictures of the web,
Right.
but actually people coming in, it's very moving and heartwarming.
Our whole premise was to make sure that people felt a personal connection. And we're finding that when people are able to come to a physical site and when we're having a volunteer sort and a nonprofit comes to pick up the items that they're going to be using, there's a whole different kind of connection that's happening, and we're really enjoying
It also allows us, too, to get more larger donations, so businesses or corporations or someone who has a lot of bulk items, we now have a place then we can store them, sort them, get them ready for
Right.
somebody to come in and pick them up. Very hard to do with the web
Sure.
present. So, yeah.
Sure. So Jerry, tell us a little bit about the governance structure of this nonprofit.
Well, we have a 6-person board, all volunteers. And
their background business, basically?
it varies. It's interesting. It's a great selection of people that hopefully assist Emily when she needs it. But we have people with marketing background and law and IT. I have a business background. So Emily will reach out to us from a project-by-project standpoint. But we also provide basic governance. So we meet on a periodic basis. We'll vote on budgets and give guidance as to where the organization should be going and doing and that sort of thing. And also, I think, at least I do, try to be an ambassador of the organization. As you go through your daily life, the story we keep telling you tell people the story of what we do, and it's like, wow, it's a great idea, and I can help. So.
And you mentioned budget. How big of a budget is it?
I might be carrying it around in my wallet. It's a very small budget.
Okay.
But we've also transitioned, I think, to a point where we're not a startup. We used to be an organization that could exist on grants. We were very fortunate to get some community grants, some corporate grants to fund our growth, if you will. But now we have storage, we have web-based expenses, so we now have monthly expenses to meet, and we're looking and trying to develop now a donor base, regular people who contribute money to the organization.
And so it's basically through donations, individual or corporate?
Right now, donations through individuals for the most part. If we're fortunate, a grant, maybe from a community organization or a corporation.
Okay. I was really impressed when I went over to your storage facilities, and we can say that they're in Riverwood, so they're another Lake County, so it's up in Lake County. And tell us a little bit about how you got the facility and what's in there and how it's used, and then we'll talk a little bit about sorting day.
Excellent. Well, our facility sort of born out of just a necessity to reach more people, to have more hands-on experience. So we started with a single unit and had a special event located around the Giving Tuesday, big nonprofit, almost holiday, if you will. You've got your Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Giving Tuesday. And we partnered with an organization, again, another Lake County-based organization, Gratitude Generation, where we opened up if you touch it in your home and you no longer need it, bring it to our facility. And Gratitude Generation was able to reach out to their community, and the influx of items we saw was just absolutely fantastic. So those were all given, like in-kind, gently used based. Then as we continued to morph, we saw the need for larger facilities, more of these containers where we're taking in corporate items. So we've taken in large donations in conjunction with Fill a Heart for Kids. We've taken in stuff from Joann's and that's home goods and crafting and decorations. And we've taken in large industrial soaps and socks and paper clips, and just it keeps going and going.
When I went over, it kind of reminded me of the show Storage Wars. Where you don't know what's in there. You just see all these boxes.
Right.
And then when we walked through, it was just really a plethora. Just every box was different and next to each other, and you've got three large storage units. Yeah, so it really is growing, and it was just kind of amazing.
We've got a filtering system that we're trying to put into place for especially those items that come to us that are gently used. We start with putting the items into our intake, doing a rough sorting them by category, and then checking them for quality control, checking them again for quality as we count them into the box and put them in. So when we have different organizations that come by, like PADS, Lake County has come, and they're looking specifically for men's casual clothes, we can say, here's our box, what would you like from here? Or I would like housewares from Midwest Veterans Closet, would like housewares. We're able to direct them in a little bit more organized fashion.
Yeah, Jerry had mentioned something, I think, with toothpaste.
Well,
that's
kind of my lesson in networking, if you will. So picture me in the dental chair, my head back while I'm working on my teeth. And at the end of your dental experience, I always give you a little goodie bag of toothbrush and toothpaste. And it just occurred to me to ask my dentist, so where do you get these things? And they in turn gave me their name of the representatives from Colgate and Crest. And we've been getting donations then of toothbrushes primarily that are directed for use by dentists, but maybe the name is spelled wrong, or there's some other piece. Perfectly good toothpaste that probably would have wound up in a landfill. And we put those in, and we barely have a chance to store those before they go. I mean, we have so many organizations that help homeless or transitional housing or whatever that they go very, very quickly.
And also, I gained a greater respect and appreciation for socks. So just tell me about socks.
Well, the socks were a wonderful donation from Living Royal in Wheeling, and there were about $192,000 worth of brand new socks. They retail from between $6 and $16 a piece. They're really fantastic quality, but they just couldn't print on them, or there was such a slight flaw, like maybe in how the logo was on the bottom of the sock. Wonderful product that they didn't feel they could use for retail, that they've gifted to us, and in turn we've split that 16 different ways into different nonprofits, all from this one donation. Wow. So that's something we love to be able to do, is take in something larger and break it up. So one organization can't take all of those socks, but that's what giveNkind allows that to happen, is breaking up of something that's larger.
Let's talk about volunteers, because it's an all-volunteer organization. You, of course, started as a volunteer.
Sure.
So is there a profile of a typical volunteer?
I don't know if there's a profile of a typical volunteer. We're, first of all, very dependent on volunteers, and we're an all-volunteer organization, the board and Emily and everybody. We tend to get, especially in the sort, everything, people who are retired, school children, groups, Girl Scouts, We were at the Vernon Hills Volunteer Fair a few weeks ago, and we ran the gamut of people who were interested in us, from students who needed to do some public service work, to retirees, to just people who wanted to generally help. So I don't know if there's a typical profile, but I think there's a recognition like, wow, this is pretty good, and I can make an impact for this organization, in a couple hours.
Is it something that people sign up ahead of time saying, I want to do this and I have these hours available?
We post on our website when we're going to do sorts, and so people can sign up for there. Also, if you have an organization, that wants to volunteer, you can give us a call and say we're available Thursday, and we'll open up the facility for them to come in and work.
And what are some of the things that you've done as a volunteer?
Well, I have done obviously the sorts, so those are a lot of fun. Emily always refers to those actually as shopping in the initial phase, going through those boxes, open them up, and say, look what we got. I've also worked in the areas of maybe called business development, some of those volunteer fairs, contacting some of the charities, networking in any way that I can.
Wonderful.
Fundraising as we can do it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on some boards, and the term metrics keeps coming up. Measurable success. So, can you give me some metrics of giveNkind success and number of people you've touched or contacts?
Well, we've got over 80 partners. So those are not 80 nonprofit partners that we work with, and we have done in the last. We really consider our new birth date of the organization when we changed our model to being hands-on and collecting items, and also with our partnership with ShipBob, which is a huge supporter of ours, taking canceled goods from their e-market vendors and directly placing them with our partners has been really a fantastic partnership. So since that October 1st date, in the last quarter of 2018 alone, we did over $450,000 worth of in-kind goods.
Wow. And
then this quarter that just finished, the first quarter of 2019, we're looking at about over 180. So this is a start to our new year. So we'll be hopefully able to reach the $1 million mark before this year is out.
do you think you can maintain all volunteer as it grows?
I think that a responsible thing to do would be to start looking at a staff model, but that's something that our board's going to have to consider and think about. Volunteers are definitely our lifeblood, and that will never change because of the passion they bring and their love for serving the community. I just think that helping to manage its growth over time, it would be wonderful if we could have a staff.
Okay. You've talked about, when we talked earlier before the show, the term stories of impact. Particular story of impact. Can you just maybe give us one or two now?
I don't know if we have enough time in a whole show. I could literally do a show just on impact.
Let's start with one.
Okay. Our partnership, Bob, as I mentioned, is a Chicago startup which with national ties in 5 different distribution areas. They had a vendor that just closed shop, no longer was selling their items, but was left in their storage warehouse with about $390,000 worth of goods. And just 26,000 pieces of sports apparel. Those items, they contacted us because we're their nonprofit partner. We reached out to Social Works in Chicago, and they do a lot of work with the homeless, and was having a special event that impacted all throughout Northwest Indiana and Illinois, thousands of homeless families, and they were able to give those warming items to homeless folks in our community.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have more. I'm just so excited about them. Something that the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless received was charging stations, $11,000 worth of mobile charging stations, because homeless members of our community still have cell phones. They need to reach for emergency purposes, job interviews, to communicate with their family, and they aren't always at somewhere where they can charge their phone. So these extended life charging stations made such a difference. The Chicago Coalition for the Homeless loved those. That wasn't something I would think of right off the bat.
Do you have a favorite story?
Well, I don't have a favorite story, but I think what's amazing is what is used that you wouldn't think of it. You wouldn't necessarily go and call around looking for charging stations, but there's a tremendous value of it.
Yeah.
We had a large donation of craft type goods from Joann's. And you look at that initially and you say, what are we going to do with that? Well, we have organizations that do transitional housing for homeless or for women from abuse situations, and they move them into apartments. Well, a house isn't a home unless you have some decor on the walls and plates and spoons in the cupboard. So, boy, that stuff went very, very quickly. So that's the amazing thing to me is how many paper clips do we use? 100,000,
Yeah, we got a donation in of over 1 million paper clips, and then we had an organization pick them up that's going to be using them actually in their after-school programs to make costume design, chainmail costume design. I would never have thought.
Who would have thought that?
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're almost at the end of our interview. So it sounds so wonderful. What challenges do you face?
We are always in the need of more space and more people to help us make this work, because again we're all volunteer based, and also transportation of these larger donations we get, so in order to take them in and split them up and send them out.
And I'm going to give the contact information. Our character generator is not working today, so I'm going to say it. It's Emily at giveNkind.org, EMILY at GIVENKIND.org. Jerry, any closing thoughts?
I think the only thing that holds us back are those resources that Emily talked about. You saw our storage facility. If we stop doing that sorting for one day, the organization, everything backs up. So,
and our show is, we're backed up.
We're backed up too. Okay.
On behalf of Emily Petway and Jerry Mahowski, giveNkind, Ron Levitsky saying, hope you enjoyed as much as I did. See you next time on What's This Show For? FOR Friends of Ron. Bye-bye.